Hi, this is Eddie again, the instructor for the motorcycle culture class, and I'm interviewing Savannah. Thanks a lot for helping us out with this, Savannah.
Of course.
Okay. So we'll start with, can you tell us your name and age, please?
All right. My name is Savannah and I'm 20 years old.
Okay. And where do you live, Savannah?
I live in Tempe, Arizona.
Okay. And when did you start riding, or how long have you been a motorcycle rider?
I've been riding since I was 10 years old, so 10 years under my belt, which is pretty impressive for somebody at my age.
I think that's fantastically impressive. I started much later riding, so that's great. Um, so what type of bike do you currently ride? What do you ride?
I currently have a Yamaha R3. It's a little smaller displacement sport bike.
That's a sport bike, yeah?
Yeah,
Okay,
correct.
good. Um, Savannah, as you know, I mean, some people express a loyalty to certain brands of bikes, whether they're Harleys or whatever they are. Do you feel a sense of loyalty to a brand of bike?
I really don't. I've like ridden at least probably every brand of bike, and each brand has its pros and cons, but
Yeah.
I don't have a loyalty.
Okay, Savannah, you have a sport bike. I guess I ride a cruiser. Maybe those are more suited to my age and what I'm doing. Is there a particular reason why you ride a sport bike, or that's what you wanted to ride?
So I started actually on the street on a cruiser, and um I have a need for speed.
Yeah.
So sport bikes are a little bit more fun in that aspect.
Okay, that's great. Okay, good. And how much riding do you do? I mean, how many miles a week, or I mean, how much time do you spend a week? Are you riding?
So I probably ride like 200 miles a week. Like I am a
Wow,
pretty avid motorcyclist rider. So I probably average about 12,000 on a bike a year.
that's great. And Savannah, do you use the bike for commuting? I mean, for work or anything,
For the
or
most part, like unless it's raining cats and dogs, I mean, Arizona has such nice weather that I can usually ride every day and be fine.
yeah. And then you spend your time off or your weekends, whatever, doing pleasure riding too.
I do.
That's great. You get a lot of bike time in. Good. Um, Savannah, do you work on your bike? Some people like that, and other people like me can only put gas in the bike, and that's about it. Do you work on the bike? Do you enjoy that?
I do. So I'm very picky about who I let work on my bike, but for the most part, I'll befriend someone who has more mechanical expertise and then have them work with me and train me on my own bike. So for the most part, like I can do valves by myself, chain by myself, like liquid changes. So yeah.
It sounds like you can do a lot by yourself. That's great. I'm jealous. Okay. You just reminded me just a quick story. I did the typical stupid thing when I first got a bike. I left my key in the ignition, and then just the battery died. But anyway, there was a guy in the next apartment. He saw I was having some trouble, and he said maybe I can help. And he said, let me get my tools. And he went in quickly, got his tools, came out, threw them on the ground, sat next to my bike, and looked at me and said, the best thing about bikes is working on them. And I was like, really? And so lots of people enjoy that very much. And I guess there's a pleasure of being able to fix problems without having to take them to the shop. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Have you taken a motorcycle safety foundation course?
I have. So I took mine once I wanted to get a sport bike. My family was like, hey, you should probably take this first. And then that was, I think, in December of 2018.
Yeah.
So
Okay. Savannah, you mentioned your family. How does your family and friends, how do the people around you feel about you being a rider?
they're absolutely thrilled about it. Actually, most of my friends ride as well. My mom, my dad, and my grandpa all ride. They weren't
Uh-huh.
too thrilled on the sport bike idea, but Yeah, they all they all ride.
And I guess that's a big reason, a big part of how you became a rider, because
Yeah,
your family culture is bikes are a big part of it.
very much so.
Okay. Um, by the way, just a question about terminology. How would you identify yourself? A biker, rider, motorcyclist, motorcycle
Um,
enthusiast?
I would probably lean more towards like motorcyclist, but like when people ask, it's more of like I'm a person with a passion.
Yeah, that's okay. That's great. Um, Savannah, tell me and tell us a little bit about what do you wear when you ride in terms of, I mean, helmets, protective gear, etc. What do you wear when you ride?
So it definitely differs with occasion, but I will always wear helmet, jacket, and gloves at a bare minimum. Um, if I start doing longer rides, I'll start looking at more like protective pants and more protective shoes. And then if I'm doing more so like aggressive riding, then I start looking at like full tracksuit, full boots, full gloves, and everything.
Yeah, I have two related questions. One is you mentioned longer rides. I mean, is this something that you do also when you have time? What's an example of a longer ride for you, for example?
So I actually moved up to Phoenix to be closer to the mountains in Flagstaff. So I do like going up there. I
Yeah,
like going to Payson, visiting the lakes. So that would probably be my example of a longer ride.
and those are kind of day long kind of
Yeah,
trips. And the other
correct.
one, you mentioned aggressive riding, which I hadn't really heard before. What are we talking about here when you say aggressive riding?
So aggressive riding is more like circuit track riding.
Ah,
So if I know I'm going to be like going around turns at higher than anticipated speeds, then that's where I kind of get more of my protective, like the most protective gear I have, and
yeah,
wear that.
that's great, Savannah. And it also sounds like, I mean, you do lots of different types of riding, which is very interesting also. And I mean, I kind of tool around on my cruiser, and I'm happy enough with that. Okay, good. Um, Savannah, do you belong to any motorcycle organizations or clubs?
I don't.
Okay. And a related question, are you mostly a solo rider? Do you prefer riding alone? Do you ride with friends?
I would say right off the bat, I do like to be alone, but if I'm with a group of people that I've ridden with before and I trust them, then that's when I don't mind riding with other people.
Hmm. You're sparking another question now. You mentioned trust. One of the things, I mean, I kind of joined a motorcycle group, but I haven't ridden with them yet. And I've never ridden with a group. And you mentioned
Hmm.
trust. What's the issue there trust-wise when you're riding with somebody or riding with a
Um,
group?
So I've seen this with a few people of different ages, and with the younger crowd, they tend to get on a bike because it's fun and they want to go. And with the
Yeah.
older crowd, they would get on a bike and they want to go because it's something off their bucket list.
Uh-huh.
But they don't adapt the skill required,
Yeah.
and sometimes that they can mess up, get out of formation in a group ride, and they end up hurting people. I've seen this a couple times, and it's definitely scared me away from bigger groups of people that I don't know.
Yeah, that's very interesting. And the point being also that um, it sounds like you'd be quite reluctant to be riding with anybody that you didn't know and trust.
Correct.
Yeah. Okay, good. Um, do you attend any motorcycle rallies, bike shows, anything like that? Those things attract you?
Very rarely. I mean, they do attract me, but not to like enter my bike into like a contest or anything. But I do like looking at other people's bikes. I like luxury bikes, drag bikes, full racetrack bikes.
Yeah. But have you thought about, for example, I recently, I had never heard about this. There's a motorcycle rally in Texas, a Republic of Texas rally, and I just suddenly thought, oh, I might be able to drive across the country and go there. But has it ever occurred to you to go to a rally like that, or drive to Sturgis, or any that didn't attract you at all? No?
Not really, no.
Yeah. Okay, good. Um, Next, just a question about the first part of the course, one of the things we're doing is just why people ride, and people give different reasons for why they enjoy riding so much and why they like it. Well, what is your primary motivation for riding, and why do you like it so much?
It's it's fun, I guess is my answer, because I mean, like, it's a way of getting from one place to another. And I
Yeah,
mean, with cars, you can have fun with cars, but there's a lot of expenses that go into making a car more fun and more fast. Whereas
yeah,
bikes, like, you can get on any bike and you'll be faster than most things on the road.
yeah.
So I mentioned before I had a little bit of a need for speed, and that's probably where I get into motorcycling because I can be a lot quicker on the road.
Yeah, that's great. One of the things that I realized from teaching the course and is that, I mean, you can read and talk about motorcycling all day long, but being on a bike and twisting the throttle and on an open road, I mean, there's something about that experience that you can't really capture in talking about it or writing about it.
Yeah,
Would you agree?
I definitely agree. One of the first times like I rode my sport bike, I was in Tucson. I was on my way to Mount Lemon, and my helmet just has this really like wide field of view,
Yeah,
and it's you don't realize how enclosed you are until you're on a bike,
right.
because the way that I saw the mountains was just like nothing I had ever experienced before.
That sounds fantastic. And I one of my favorite riding experiences is lots of weekends I go drive up ride up Mount Lemon. So I enjoy it very much. Um, Savannah, what is your, you do lots of riding, you have lots of experience. What is your primary concern or your primary worry when you're on your motorcycle?
My primary concern with that would honestly be that I get injured in a way that would physically make me incapable
Mhm.
of being able to live.
Yeah.
And I'm talking about being alive. Like, if I die on a motorcycle, like, I've already accepted the fact that's a full possibility.
Mhm.
But if, like, say I got paralyzed and I could never walk again in my life, that would be my biggest concern.
Right. Okay. Good. Do you think you'll ever quit riding motorcycles?
Unless I did get injured to the point where I couldn't, more than likely, no.
Okay. Um, Savannah, if I can ask you just a little bit about your experience of riding motorcycles as a woman, and as you know, I mean, the motorcycle culture, I think even now in the United States, I think the number of female riders seems to be increasing, but it's still like, you know, 80,
Very
85,
low.
80 or 85% of people are male riders. So can you give us just your thoughts about being a woman as a woman rider in this motorcycle culture?
Um, it can be very demoralizing at times. Like, men have a tendency of trying to sexualize women on bikes, and I
Yeah,
would say that's the biggest downside to it. But the big plus side is, besides the guys who disrespect you, there's a lot of respect in that culture for being a woman, even from people who don't ride. I constantly get complimented for being on a bike,
yeah.
for not being scared. And when I'm on the tracks, being better than guys.
That
So, yeah.
you must get a lot of. I think I can tell by your expression. You get a lot of satisfaction comes with that also. Yeah,
It's after like years of guys trying to one up women, it is nice to kind of feel like, hey, I'm better than some people.
yeah.
So, um, yeah, I would say that's the biggest or the worst part of it is just some people will disrespect you in a sexualized way. But for
Yeah.
the most part, I get a lot of respect.
That's great, and I'm happy to hear that, and I'm glad I asked also because I think you're pointing out that aside from a bit of the negative buzz you hear around you, there's a lot of positive stuff, and positive
Yeah.
commentary also about being a female rider.
And it's nice too because with beginner riders who are female, there's a lot of people who are willing to help. And like there's never been a woman who taught me how to work on my own bike. It's
Yeah,
all been guys.
yeah,
So it has its pluses and downs.
yeah. And Savannah, you have some female friends who are also riders?
I do. I have my whole girl group.
That's that's great. Okay. And a final question. Do you have, the question is, do you have a favorite or worst motorcycle experience? And I think I want to pinpoint it a little bit. Do you have a favorite or a great motorcycle experience you could share with us?
So the reason why I got the R3, it's not the fastest bike, but it's the most maneuverable bike. And so my favorite experience after owning a really slow cruiser for a long time was being about 115 in the middle of a turn.
Wow, I see.
That was really exhilarating.
It sounds like it. I've realized from because I had a bike for a while, and then but I went for about a year period and I didn't have a bike, and I just got a motorcycle again about 3 or 4 months ago. And one of the things I'm enjoying a lot about it is just the better you get, the more enjoyable it is. And now I'm very
Exactly.
focused on improving my skills. And when I get better at doing turns or doing things, it just becomes more fun. And is that part of what you're talking about also, is like you
Yeah.
become more skillful at something and it just becomes much more enjoyable?
Yeah, I would definitely say the skill. Like when I first started riding dirt bike, one thing about me is I'm very, very tiny. I'm 5'1", so
Uh-huh.
I don't fit a lot of bikes. And like eventually, I was able to learn how to be short on a bike, and then I was able to learn to go faster on a bike. Now I'm learning to be able to lean over on a bike, and I would say with more skill comes a lot more fun.
Great. And it sounds like a good note to finish up on also. Savannah, thanks a lot for taking some time and sharing your experiences and your background with me and with the class.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you.